the methods that we've talked about all semester long for studying culture, right? The surface and intermediate and deep level stuff. Or maybe it's the stuff about on that continuum. If any of you talk about individualism versus collectivism, or the views of time, or the views of like the direct and indirect, right? Look for things like that, and then those would be great comments for you to make for what you appreciate, what you're learning from those your fellow students. All right, let's just get started here. Mike is going to start us out with Native Americans. You may stand or you may sit, and then also I borrowed this clicker because I still didn't get batteries and stuff. I still haven't figured that one out. But anyway, I borrowed this. So this button should move you. Yes. And here's the.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, my presentation is on Native Americans, and I've brought some stuff. I've gone to a lot of powwows. Probably like every year through middle school, and this is just a couple of things. We got an axe head, a foxtail, something I made, and then like a quiver. So talking more about, there we go. This is kind of the outline of what I'm going to be talking about. And then so the history. So a lot of Native Americans, people sometimes call them Indians, and the reason for this is when Christopher Columbus came here, he thought that he was an Indian. And so he called them, well, Indians. And today that's kind of a sore topic, along with Native Americans. They prefer not to be called that. Usually when you talk to someone who is Native American, typically you want to ask them how they prefer to be recalled. Or if you can't, maybe just calling them Native American, Indian, Indigenous, American is fine with them. So that's kind of a picture. And so forced assimilation, the Dawes Act in 1887 by President Grover Cleveland allowed the government to break up Indian land. And if a Native agreed to that, they got citizenship. So through that, many Natives have lost a lot of their culture and a lot of their background. Another way was through boarding schools. Kids were forced to go there. They were forced to cut their hair, and they weren't allowed to practice their religious practices, and they had to not talk in their native language. So this is a picture of how they were forcibly assimilated, and through this they've lost a lot of their culture. But today they're trying to bring back that culture. A lot of people are talking with elders in their community to bring back the language barrier that has been built up. A lot of children are now being grown up with both English and Wampanoag as their first language. Powwows are happening more frequently, like I talked about. I've gone to a couple, but there are certain private ones as well. Yep, that's a couple of what the powwows tend to look like. It's more of a celebration of life and the sacrifice that their elders made in the wars. So some of the surface level culture is hair. Hair is a very important topic in Native culture. For them, it's viewed more as Mother Nature's grass, and so cutting it would be a symbol of disrespect to her. Today, many Native people are trying to grow their culture back, and so they find that essential is to start growing their hair and not cutting it. So intermediate level, powwows. Although you can go into a couple, there are still many, many private powwows happening. But when you can go, if you do go, I would encourage talking to a couple, as they are very open and enjoy talking about their culture. They also may invite you to dance or to share food with them. And also, you'll hear about them honoring those who have passed in the wars. So some deep level culture is more of their religion. As settlers came, they brought Christianity, and so a lot of natives find their hope in God. But some natives are, again, bringing back their roots and are starting to find their hope in their other gods. And so then some cultural things, collectivism, it's more looked at as a community, a group. So what is done in one part is done for the whole. They're looking at it as a group of people and not just centered on one person. Uncertainty avoidance, as they're putting their hope in either God, but also in Mother Nature, in life. It's less of, well, that was a bad thing. They're looking at it as an opportunity to grow. And then the short-term direction, it's, again, they're looking at what's going to happen next. But whatever happens will happen in the future. So spirituality, like I talked about, it's more general, less of like certain specific gods, and more general, like nature, mother, sky, wind. Many tribes are focused on what part are you in the world, and how can you better the world. And then what is happening today? This is Wampanoag, and they're trying to spread their culture and are starting to bring their children up with going to powwows, having more deep spirituality, and then having their native language. And they're having their children being brought up in this so that their culture can start to grow back after the assimilation. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Could you go back to the hair slide? There was something there that maybe it was the one no, maybe that was this was the one. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, so that second bullet point, I think that was, so many people continue to grow their hair as a sign of respect for their cultural heritage and as a form of self-esteem, self-respect, and a sense of being belonging. Okay. Okay, so that's just interesting right there, because this is, it's, the hair connects to their collectivism, right? Because it's all like this, but then it's also, there's this idea, the idea of self-esteem is very much an American thing, right? And probably, maybe it comes partly out of Native culture, but it's probably also brought in things of culture. So, yeah, it's really, just really interesting to think about how that particular symbol has so much breadth that it connects to all kinds of our culture, of the cultural dynamics that we talked about. Interesting. So do you know if they ever cut it at all, like, or if they?
No, that's why, like, when I talked about the boarding schools, that was very, like, it's talked about a lot in Native culture because of how, like, meaningful their hair was.
So when it was cut, it was like it was cutting your soul.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes they do cut their hair more so if someone close to them has died. So maybe like an elder or a parent.
Okay. Okay, so part of the ritual. Interesting. Other questions? There was it you that brought to my attention the story, or did I see it somewhere else? Of a native boy who had to, they told me to cut his hair as part of the school rules. Okay, so it was just recently, in the last week or so. A boy was told by I forget what part of the administration of the school, that he had to cut his hair, he had long black hair, and he's native, and so he wasn't gonna do that. So now it's gotten to this, made national media because it's this, right? And they're asking him to, so they would leave the school before they would cut the hair. So now there's this, the revisiting the policy. Pertinent to life in the United States here and now. All right, thank you. Thanks again, Micah. You
Good
can
job.
just leave that stuff there. I can admire it until after. And then, Van, you want to go next?
All right, I do it.
You want to stand up here, or
Yeah,
you want to sit? I can get you
Okay.
a chair. Richard, did you get
Yeah, I want
this? You have one, but Richard.
Oh.
So this is, the thing I want to point out is that this is the exam. Okay, so what were highlights from the class notes presentation? So for every single one, you have to write a couple of things out, so. All right. Go ahead, Van, tell us about India and why you're interested in it.
I can use this one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's only, it's this one. The upper level of the surface, and you can see clearly. And I want to present the part about India. Yeah, India. You can see India here, and my country, original country, Burma, right there. They are neighboring country.
Can you see it, Richard? And you, okay.
Yes. Then see my state, like the border of India and the red one. Then Mizoram, I lived there from, you see, 2004 to 6, right there. 2 years I lived over there. And I have very experience. That's why I sometimes eat like Indian. So then I am speaking so you all can understand for me. Like, India is the world's second population that we all already know. Tourism is like 80%, and that official religions of government. Yes, and Shiva is repeated and dangerous and expressions of his brilliance personality. His important God is Brahma, creator, you can see that. Right. Indian history reflects the cycle of chaos and harmony created by Shiva dance. Ganesh, the son of Shiva, is the symbol of good risings from adversity. The Shiva dance that still they practicing. Also, the second religions in India is Islam. Religious Muslim rule in North India began in early 13th century and lasted until the middle of 19th century. In Muslim, in their perspective, then we all already know men's are ahead and women gonna follow the will of men's. Then man can easily divorce, breaking up woman, wife. They can take 5 wives because of their income, something like that. I always have experience too. I lived in Malaysia for 7 years. I guess around with them, they're practicing. I work with them, and that they all, I ask them, they answer me. Then we have enough money, kind of income. We can take like wives. Girl usually cannot go alone in public. Usually cover their head with hijab. Last time you practiced. Yes. They cannot wear revealing clothes. Clothes is the rise of God is so many laws in, right? Deepest level culture, collectivism, communities or community. India, the ability to integrate into the community is the determining factors of how well a person will flourish in Indian society and family are strongly built ties that are extremely well organized at first at competing tasks around the house and in their brothers community. The community and family are involved in all aspects of decision making and usually there's in her what is that? Hierarchy of who makes a big decision. Yeah. I will compare it to a small corporations where everyone has their own special parts in keeping together in households. These ties are extremely important in all aspects of Indian life. Arranged marriages are becoming less common but are still widely practiced in rural areas. The family goes through a series of streaming to find suitable mates for their son or daughter. Western approaches such as love marriages are becoming more common, right? Is that true? Right. Most Indians are raised in extended family, similar to my culture, a form of family organizations which brothers stay together after marriage. Man brings their wives into their parent households and home compounds if they marry. resentment. All right. Then about children, how our community cares. The children in Indian society are taken care of by community and not so much just by biological parents. I remember when I sitting on the train at that time, listening to the children screaming and playing across the trains, and I thought to myself, where's in the world are parents? I soon realized that it was just unspoken law that the community was going to watch over the children to make sure they are safe and they will be corrected by community. And we already know. I just copied from here.
Yeah, this slide looks really familiar.
Yeah.
That's
Turkey,
fine,
right?
that's
Yeah.
great.
Well, Turkey, we
Yeah.
always share for us last time. Yeah, the times, really bit different from here. Time is much more cyclical in nature and does not represent such a strict linear flow. It's much more flexible. If you try to make business plans or plans with friends and based around a schedule, make sure you set plenty of buffer room for late arrival. Sometimes it's nice to have a more relaxed attitude about times. It is much less stressful at times depending on situation. This cyclical times structure stems from Hindu philosophy. Hindu believe that we are constantly going through cycles, and these appearings and reappearings into this cycle for all of infinity. Right? Some bias from men's and not balanced rights, men and women house is different. Right? Reference for sons is as old as Indian society. The sons are granted that descendant will continue, and the word pura, son, literally means protecting from going to hell. After the death of the parent, the last rites will be performed. This ensures a peaceful departure of their soul to their next worlds in ongoing cycle of life. The daughters, in contrast, in traditionally less important, the daughter is usually someone who will never contribute to family income and who will take much of family wealth at their dowries in marriage. Bias against women. India rates of India realized that women at a young age were lower than men. A woman authority in a woman's positions are rare, except for their inherited position. We recognize that Indian society has undergone some major changes, especially in urban area after liberalizations of India economy in the early 1990s. Right? Hindu marriage emphasize identity, not even girls are trained to be submissive of fulfill feminized roles prescribed by culture. In Indian traditions, the ideals of womanhood is chastity, purity, gentleness, self-seeking, self-sacrifice, and singular loyalty all around the country. Women in Indian society were subjected to infanticide. Children married, harder chastity and seclusions, marital oppressions, and the law status of widow. Poorer families are more fearful because they cannot scrape together enough money to find husband for their daughters, and many reaches to infanticide. Yes. Meanwhile, India elected Pratihar Party as his first female president in 2007. And in India, a prominent positions in parliamentary democracy. Women are enrolling in MBA programs and engaging in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And you can see the picture, the first president of India, female president. It's funny stuff. Like my country, like here right now, I never practiced this kind because I live in here. In India, there is no such thing as personal bubbles or personal space. Last time, Dr. She already explained us, right?
Yeah, so that's how
They
you,
hanging each other like this, see?
and that's how you grew up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not men, they love each other, they love kind of girlfriend, boyfriend. It's not just kind of they care each other.
Mhm.
Yeah, friendship. That's it.
Mhm.
We can manage. So there are many differences between Americans and Indian culture, but I think we have more similarities than we do differences. The most prominent one that you will immediately notice if you will travel in India or out of this country. Neither one is better than other. I have to say that India will treat their foreign guests somewhat more respectful than American treat in their foreign guests than my country. We are close the bordering country. Anyways, I won't get too far into this diagram. Indian culture is incredibly beautiful, and American culture is wonderful too, right? Yep, magic. Like various birds on the tree, the cricket, it's beautiful. Like the people win the world. Different people of race or color, they create and make this world beautiful. We are the world, just you and me, who are the likeness of God in the Bible view. Right? Genesis. See? Land was from Dr. Who. We are son and the daughter. All people need to be kind and not biased. Hospitality we possess is to understand and help those in need. Then, son and daughter, my last word, Dr. I just pressed. Don't have a narrow views, we have a broad views. People are image of God. People are different, respect the differences. Be like a good Samaritans. Your hospitality is very important. Have compassion for those who are weak and needy. Love tea or Chinese word. Thy's neighbors as thyself. Right? That the Bible uses some quotations from this book and some experience from mine that I live together. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah.
Personal questions or?
How long did you live in Burma again?
Burma? I grew up still like until 16 years old. Then I go to India for 2 years. I back to my country. Then I take exam for like high school. Then I passed. I try to my story. I try to go to continue to college, like some politics, my country. Then I left to my personal safe for my life. The military forced me to join the military. Then we cannot against over there. Sorry, we cannot say like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah. Yes. Still today, the wars, they take military. They take all of the power from government. Then all of my families, my parents, they abandon their careers and they live in New Delhi, in India right now. Sometimes I send money there. They rent the one my brothers. He is engineer, electric. He served for like officer, but he abandoned all of their careers. All of my parents, they left.
So most of your family is in India?
Yeah, right now they
Right now, North
yeah.
India.
India is the New Delhi, the big
New Delhi,
yeah,
okay.
the capital city. We live over there. We rent apartment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so are you the only family member living in the United States?
No, I brought my sibling, one brother and one sister.
Okay,
That we live together here.
okay.
We have been since 2014, and I support them. The one my brother Caleb, I let his finish high school.
Okay.
In my sport, I rent apartment. We live together. Yes, and my story. Then I flee to Malaysia in 2007 and 2014. I came in 7 years.
From refugee camp?
Yes.
You came here, okay.
Yeah, that was my story. I stayed almost 20 years. I haven't seen heaven like this. What physically, like
Yeah.
we can still use like Facebook or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
We just it's that stuff. But
It is.
everything we have God image, what God had a big plan. I never imagined to be type of student. Right now, I am a student of Dr. Hu. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, any last
Yes.
questions?
Okay.
Yeah, it's really helpful, insightful. So I found that the whole gender thing so interesting. So girls have so many things against them, right? So if the boys are the ones that will live with their parents and all the brothers stay together, the girls are left out of that. And the boys are the ones that bring the parents into heaven. Right? They're the ones that, whose name actually means something like getting your parents into heaven and out of. And then if the girls, for every girl you have to pay money for them to get married. Is that the same in Burma too, or is it mainly just India?
Well, kind of, yes. In Burma, like girl cannot take any inheritance from parents.
Okay.
Yes, we decided
Okay.
they have out of family. After they married is being a part of husband's side. We consider like that. Yeah, it's similar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Zuriel.
All right.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Click.
This button and then forward.
That's fine. so today I'm going to be presenting about my culture about the Philippines. So to start off with, the Philippines is an island country of Southeast Asia, located in the western Pacific Ocean, and Manila is the capital of the Philippines. So if you can look right here on the map, that's roughly about where Manila is right there. Start.
And then remind us again, where is it on the big screen? On the big
Manila?
map? No, I mean Philippines.
All of that, right?
Right, so
The
then
whole-
that's here.
Yeah, on this map.
map.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
Lots of islands there.
So talking about surface level culture, so the Philippines gets its name from King Philip II, who was the king of Spain during the Spanish colonialization of the islands in the 16th century. And because it was the Philippines was under Spanish rule for so many years, and as well as being under help by the U.S. for about almost 50 years, the Philippines has many cultural affinities with the West. So to start off with, that after Spanish colonial rule, when the U.S. kind of took over the Philippines, they turned the country into kind of like a self-sufficient capitalistic democracy. And the U.S. did this by creating an infrastructure that would improve both literacy and economy in the country. And as a result, literacy doubled to about half by the 1930s, and a fourth of the educated population could speak English. And this would later on be a massive influence for the Filipino culture, as English did become a dominant language alongside the Filipino language of Tagalog. So some cultural connections that the Philippines has to Spain is that the majority of religion that is practiced in the Philippines is still Roman Catholic at 79.5%. This is the reason why this is so significant is because the goal of Spain at the time was they wanted to convert as many of the country into Roman Catholicism as they could. And then another influence of Spanish influence in the Philippines can be seen in art, as some forms of art, Filipino art is heavily Spanish, such as like paintings and architecture can be seen or thought of as reminiscent of Spanish pieces and can be attributed to various different artists that came from Spain to create art and construct buildings with Spanish influence. So we have like a church on top with the cross in the back, and then this could be kind of considered an example of what a Spanish influence on art architecture and with that house. Continuing to talk about surface levels, so as I had mentioned before, Tagalog is probably the most prominent language in the Philippines, with the bulk of native speakers being located in Manila, and as well as other parts of the Philippines such as central and south central Luzon and the islands of Mindoro and Marinduque. And then each year on June 12th, that is considered for the Philippines Independence Day, and when we gained our freedom and we're no longer under Spanish colonial rule. So each year on June 12th, there's a big celebration in the Philippines to celebrate that independence with fiestas, parades, and fireworks. And more on surface level, so the people of the Philippines are called Filipinos, which is spelled Filipinos. And the ancestors of the Filipino population were from Malay descent and came from the Southeast Asian mainland, which is now known as Indonesia. Now moving gears a little bit, talking about intermediate level cultures. So, as mentioned before, the Philippines is mostly practiced as Roman Catholicism, and just a little fun fact, but there is actually a small population in the Philippines that practices Islam. So Islam was brought to the Philippines in about the 15th century from Brunei or Borneo to the west, and the religion was already well established in places like Sulu, how do you say it? Archipelago and Mindanao by the time of European contact, and it grown a big following around Manila. So there does exist contemporary Muslim Filipino communities, collectively known as Moros, which are kind of largely limited to basically the southern islands and account for about 5% of the population. Continuing intermediate level, so when talking about school in the Philippines, so children are usually grouped by ability, and then kids who are in first grade are usually being taught in Filipino or Tagalog, and then maybe after a couple months, English will be added. And so basically elementary school students, secondary school students, as well as college students are required to wear uniforms. So girls will usually wear plaid skirts and white blouses. Meanwhile, in public schools, girls will wear dark blue skirts, and each private school has their own colors, and boys will usually wear shirts and dark pants. And then the women or female teachers are usually given an allowance to purchase their uniforms to wear Monday to Thursday, and men will usually wear dark pants and a barong, which is basically like a lightweight cotton shirt or a polo shirt. And then in school, female teachers are usually addressed as ma'am, and then of course male teachers are addressed as sir, and these titles are very highly prized and are used by teachers in addressing one another. And if we look down here at the bottom, the University of the Philippines, which is located in Manila, is a public university that is regarded as one of the best in the country in the Philippines, and many private colleges are found in major municipalities. So now it's moving gears and talking about deep level culture. So in a Filipino household, it's very common to find at least 3 generations of family living together. So often grandparents will play a large role in raising their grandkids, and extended family will often kind of live very close to one another and will come together during large celebrations or any large gatherings. So it's always common to find family who return to their family home during the weekend to spend some time, and who are either spending a week in work or studying. And so for people who live abroad or live far away from their families, they will usually attempt to see their family either once a year by returning home to the Philippines during their break from work, and they can be seen. And this can sometimes be a little bit difficult for those with kids or elderly parents who live in the Philippines in order to support their family. So what happens sometimes is when we can't see our family, we will send what is called a balikbayan box over here. And it basically, in a balikbayan box, you can put all sorts of different items in there, and then you can send it and it'll be shipped off to your family to receive, and it can contain clothes, food, toys, all those different sorts of things that family may need, or necessities that they may need. Continuing about deep level culture, so I just wanted to briefly touch a little bit about Filipino cuisine. So over here we have 2 pictures of probably 2 of the most popular dishes in the Philippines. The one on the left being adobo, and then the second one being pancit, which is kind of like pasta, and it contains usually a protein, either beef or chicken, and then you can put as many vegetables such as like shredded carrots or lettuce, and pretty much it's all up for interpretation of how someone may enjoy those dishes. So I'll briefly talk a little bit about adobo. So adobo is derived from a Spanish word called adobar, which meant like pickling sauce or marinating. And the Spanish were basically impressed with the marinating process of the meat that was being done by the Philippines. And so the word adobo was actually invented by Pedro de San Buenaventura, a Spanish writer. And as I said before, adobo is not just limited to chicken. You can use it with other things such as pork, fish, beef, and other different kinds of meat. And so in most cases, the meat is fried, and then it is after that it is either stewed to crispiness to the outer layer. So there's the chicken or the meat right there, and sometimes there's like bay leaves, which is kind of just like a little bit of a decoration. You don't really eat that, and then you kind of have like the sauce or like the marinade, the broth in there as well, and it's very, very good. So talking a little bit again about Filipino culture, so the Filipino culture is very much, as I've said before, it's very collective, and as I was talking about before about Filipino family culture, that It is often normal, as I said before, to have so many generations of family living together. So generally, the head of the household in a Filipino family is usually the oldest female, often like a grandmother, which we in the Philippines call as Lola, which is just another way of saying grandma. And other family members are often put together, and then whoever's kind of like the matriarch or the leader, the head of household, will often kind of look over things like finances, and then of course, preparing food, preparing meals, doing dishes, all the normal kind of standard household things. And also in the Filipino household, it's often, as I said before, often common to find 3 generations living together, and grandparents will usually play a role in raising their grandkids. And again, as mentioned before, family that will often live close to one another, and will often come together during various different celebrations, birthdays, weddings, all sorts of different festivities. And again, it's common for us, when we cannot see our family, or if we do get the chance, we always do try to make an effort to fly or to go into the Philippines, or just to kind of keep in touch with our family, regardless of how that may play out, is if we see them in person, or if it's just through virtual, like video chat or Skyping and whatnot. So, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Could you go back a couple slides to, see, maybe go forward a slide, I guess. It's probably one of your last ones. So go to the end. So, next one. Okay, yeah, this one. I don't think you said this out loud. This is really interesting.
Yeah.
Income from family members are often pooled together.
Oh, yeah.
That's true? I'm assuming it's true.
Oh,
because you
yeah.
had that there.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I said before, family is pretty much grouped together, and whoever is the leader of the house, I'm sure, all kind of get together, and one person will probably take care of the finances, and then everybody else will maybe probably contribute or pitch some kind of amount to, yeah.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Yeah, so in order for a whole house, extended family to live together, everyone is contributing.
Yeah, kind of pitching in some.
Yeah, in some way or another. It's not like everything is necessarily pooled.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. All right, other questions? Personal questions, other questions about materials? How about language? So, your mom, does she speak multiple languages?
Yeah, so sometimes, like, if I'm at home, my parents can easily go back and forth between English and Tagalog. So if they're talking to a friend of theirs or family member that is from the Philippines or Filipino, yeah, they can convert back and forth between English and Tagalog pretty well.
Yeah, so both of them do that, okay.
Yes.
So they're both bilingual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do
And
you
then, so did you pick up some of?
A little bit,
Tagalog
some,
too?
not all. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So you can understand some things.
Yeah.
So how many times do you think you've been to the Philippines?
So I think the first time I was like a baby, so I was maybe 2 or 3 years
Okay.
old. It wasn't until like 2018, I think, so about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago when I first went.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it was like for 2 weeks in the summer. I think it was like 2018 in
Okay.
July, so it was nice.
Okay.
Yeah, so my family's kind of spread apart, so they don't all live in the same area. So I have like my aunt and uncle who live in Manila, and then I have my mom's side of the family that lives in a place called Cavite, which is kind of outside of Manila, so it's a little bit far, but not too far.
Okay.
And then my dad lives in an area called Colombo Laguna, which is completely on the other side of the country. And then there's another place called Iloilo, which is in a separate island, so you have to fly there from like Manila to go there. And that's on my mom's side of the family. So yeah, it's a mixed family. So you have all different sorts of family. You have aunts, uncles, you have grandpas, grandmas, cousins, and it's all kind of mixed together.
Mhm.
but yet I guess kind of somehow all being bonded because that's, you know, where my family is from. And I think I'm now just starting to come and realize that it's all kind of starting to come full circle. Because I think when you're young, like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, your parents may tell you about your culture and whatnot, but it just doesn't really resonate with you or stick with you until you're much older, and then all of a sudden it just kind of starts to hit you more, and it's like, okay, now I understand. So this is why I am who I am, and this is my culture, my heritage. So now it's just all starting to come full circle, and it's really cool.
Yeah, it is. That's
Yeah.
great. Love it. All right, any last comment or question?
Good job.
All right, have a seat. So, I'm assuming no one else is ready to go, but if anyone else wants to go, we have time. Anybody else ready to go? No.
Hannah.
Okay. So,
Not yet.
that means we'll have the remaining 4 of you on Friday. And yeah, I mean, it worked out great today. We had plenty of time before, so I'm sure that you will have plenty of time. Any last remarks, questions? For those of you going yet, do you have any, you want to try to meet with me ahead?